It's a little thundery right now, so if you hear some... Are we catching that? That's why. Hello everyone, my name is Roberto Christian, but you may call me Robby for short, and today we're going to explore an alternate reality in which the gym leaders of Scarlet and Violet had different type specialties. I'm best known for my RuPaul's Drag Race crossovers, but I hope to keep you entertained with my other Pokemon content as well. The title of this video is pretty self-explanatory, so let's get right into it. Also subscribe and join my Discord. First we have Katy, the bug-type gym leader from Cortondo. Upon meeting her for the first time, Katy introduces herself as the owner of Patisserie Soapberry. Not as the gym leader, but as the owner of the bake shop, which I think is cute. Honestly, Katy is such a forgettable character to me that if she wasn't supposed to be the first gym leader you challenge, I never remember her. If you're familiar with my previous videos, you'll know that I associate sweet foods with fairy-type Pokemon, so we're gonna give Katy a fairy-type specialty. What makes sense here is to give her a pastry-themed team, but none of the pastry-themed Pokemon are available in Scarlet and Violet. To make this video easier on myself, I'm just gonna use the National Dex and move on. She uses 3 Pokemon on her team during that first battle, so I'm also gonna keep it at that number. I would give her a Fido, as it's one of the region's new fairy types, and it fits perfectly for Katy, and an Alchemy for obvious reasons. It's made of cream, and it has a signature move called Decorate. Need I say more? I also want to change the final Pokemon because I don't want to cheap out simply because you can change the Terra type of a Pokemon. Instead of Teddiursa, I'm going to give her an Applin because it evolves into Appleton, which is based on an apple pie, a pastry. This is perfect. This entire team right here is the whole inspiration for this video. Next one, we have Brassius from the Artazon gym, who specializes in grass-type Pokemon. Brassius is an artist known in the Pokemon world for his statue artwork called Surrendering Sunflora, which is inspired by a time in his life when he fell deathly ill. This is on Bulbapedia. I'm not making this up. It's funny for me to read because it's a stereotype that artists are usually very emo, and it made me think of Juan from The Legend of Korra. He's Opal's somber artist metal bending brother. Brassius also has brass in the name, which is a metal alloy of copper and zinc. I think it'd be cool to explore a steel type team for him. His initial team consists of 3 Pokemon, so I'm gonna give him 3 Pokemon, just like Katy. I would give him a Ferocity to contrast with the spikes he has all over this outfit. They're supposed to simulate thorns on the stem of a rose, but he's no longer a grass-type gym leader, so we had to make this look make sense. Then I'd give him a Tinkatuff, which is one of the region's newly introduced Pokemon. It also makes me think of when you're forging a sword and you hit the metal with a sledgehammer to mold it. And instead of Sudowoodo, I'd give him a Houndoom with a steel Terra type. The process of making brass sculptures utilizes extreme heat to mold the metal into shape. So I think that would be the purpose of this fire-type Pokemon outside of battle. Add Flash Fire as its ability to negate its fire-type weakness while terrestrialized, and I think we'd have a pretty good challenge. If we had to obey the same level curve, though, then the team would need to have Tinkatink and Houndour instead. Before we continue, I want to shout out a fellow creator, GAMERMAMIII, who asked me to be a part of her new project, Bad Sport Magazine. It's a collection of stories from content creators on the rise, such as myself. You can read a little more about my journey into becoming a content creator here on YouTube, as well as other creators that I've gotten the pleasure to know. She'll be posting stories from more up-and-coming creators periodically, so check that out using the link in the description or the comment section below. Next we have Iono, the electric-type gym leader from Levincia. She's a well-known streamer in the Pokemon world who prioritizes high viewership and engagement over everything else. I would think it would be really fitting for the storyline if she was in the process of redeeming herself from an online fumble, like how big-time YouTubers issue apology videos after getting cancelled.
Hey, it's been a while since you saw my face.
Since she cannot be an electric type trainer, why not go with a dark type specialty to match her shady situation? And mine, apparently. This time, Iono's initial team has 4 Pokemon, so 4 Pokemon it is. She could start the battle with Sableye, which can have the ability Prankster, to set up status conditions or stat increases. It's also a nice reference to her sharp teeth. She could then follow up with Mabostiff as one of the new dark types from this region, and Morpeko, who has a tendency to be hungry, that drives it to extremes of violence, which I find is a funny choice that reminds me of how she interacts with you in-game. My favorite quote of hers is, "Having someone as popular as you on my stream was a great idea. I'm trending like the internet's mad at me." She could close the battle with Bayonet with a dark Terra type, similar to how she had a Mismagius at the end. She wears a jacket with oversized sleeves, and I think that's so fitting for a Bayonet. The fourth gym leader is Kofu, who is a water type specialist from Cascarrafa. This one was very easy for me because he's a cook, which we mentioned during gym leader Katy's section. I decided on a fire type specialty since you need heat to properly cook meals, especially seafood, which makes sense for a town located by the seashore. We're also back to 3 Pokemon with this team. First and foremost, we have to give this man a Scovillain. A Pokemon based on bell peppers for a cooking-themed team is just perfect. I also thought to give him a Heat Rotom because it's an oven. I just think it's a cute idea, and I don't care because it's my video, and not yours. The impact Trixie Mattel and Katya have had on my life is immeasurable. Lastly, I would give him a Tatsugiri with a Fire Terra type. There's a potential challenge here with this terrestrialization combo, as its hidden ability is Storm Drain, which increases its special attack if it's hit by a water type move. I got it right this time! I'm not making the same mistake again.
Gastrodon can have the ability Storm Drain, rendering water-type moves useless and healing Gastrodon in the process.
Having a Fire Terra type and Storm Drain as its ability is a huge advantage that can raise the level of difficulty. It's difficult to imagine everyone's favorite gym leader as anything other than normal and flying type, but I think it would be fun to explore a ghost type specialty because he's practically dead inside. Look at him! This man is all of us. The level of relatability this character has with us millennials and zoomers is unmatched. Larry is the normal type gym leader from Medali and later on also reveals himself as the Elite 4 member with a flying type team. Since we're only covering gym leaders right now, I'm going to focus on his initial team of 3. He could start the battle with a Sensu style Oricorio. He already has one in his Elite 4 team, so he could just use some Purple Nectar to change its form. I also gave him a Goldengo because I think it's an ironic choice. I find Larry's character to be a commentary on capitalism since the great majority of us are overworked and underpaid, and Goldengo is based on the concept of money, which many of us don't have a lot of. All of his hard-earned money went into this Pokemon, which is probably why he is tired, exhausted, and burnt out. For his Ghost Terra type, I chose Zoroark. After you beat Larry for the first time in his gym, he gives you TM25 Facade. That is the funniest reward I have ever received in any Pokemon game. And if you've ever worked any customer service job ever, you will understand my pain. Zoroark's signature ability is Illusion, which makes it come out disguised as a Pokemon in your party's last slot. If that's not a Facade, I don't know what is. I didn't choose Mimikyu because Ryme, the actual ghost-type gym leader from Montenevera, has one. And this is a great segue into our next character. Since Ryme is an MC, a rapper, musician, I decided on an electric-type specialty. There's just something about the musician-trainer class in Pokemon games that screams electric-type. Or should I say, the guitarist trainer class. All the guitarists in Generation 3 and 4 used sound-themed Pokemon on their teams, most of which were electric type. The best example of that is Toxtricity, which I know she already has on her original team as her Ghost Terra, but I just can't imagine her not using it. The rest of her team, as I'm imagining it, consists of the following. I gave her an Electros because to me it fits that punk aesthetic that electric guitar players typically go for. I also decided on Pawmot because it might not be a choice you expect from a punk character like herself. Montenevera is also cold in climate, so Pawmot's fur will keep it warm. And since its fur acts like a battery, it could power up all her speakers on the stage. For her electric Terra type, I chose Weezing. We talked about how guitarists in previous games had electric types on their teams. Well, they also sometimes used poison types, which reminded me of Roxy, the poison type gym leader from Verbank City in the Black 2 and White 2 games. Weezing also has a skull and crossbones on its body, which is a nice reference to Ryme's original ghost type team. Next we have Tulip, the psychic type gym leader from Alfornada. She's a model, beauty influencer, and the owner of multiple businesses. I also read that she lets her Pokemon help her with her makeup, which I found kind of funny. I chose a grass type specialty for a couple of reasons. I thought of the beauty of nature that is associated with grass types, and her name is Tulip, which is a flower. She is very much concerned about superficial appearances, so I wanted this team to reflect that. She could start the battle with Serena, the most arguably diva-inspired Pokemon we have. I also gave her an Arboliva because it's the most human-like of all the new grass types from this generation. Now, for her third Pokemon, hear me out. All the Zelda girlies know what's up. Toadsquirrel. If you play Tears of the Kingdom, you know why I chose this. The CC brand mushroom hats and patterns on the outfits?
Bombastic side-eye.
I mean, look at Link in this avant-garde mushroom hat. She looks fabulosa. Tulip better take some pointers because mushrooms are all the rage right now. For her grass Terra, I chose my Lurtite because it's a symbol of beauty in the Pokemon world. It used to evolve from a Feebas by maximizing its beauty contest stat in generations 3 and 4, so this felt like the most appropriate choice. Finally, we have Grusha, the Ice-type gym leader from Glaseado Mountain. I have to admit, this was the hardest one to come up with, because there's no other type I can see this man having, since he's literally on a snowy mountain. But ultimately, I decided on flying because he's a retired snowboarder and he would fly at high speeds down the mountain. That's the best I could come up with. I tried to go for flying types that have robust layers that would ideally keep them warm in this cold climate. I gave him Pokemon like Drifblim, who has a fluffy cloud on its head, and Swanna with its thick down feathers. I also chose Bombardier as his mandatory Generation 9 choice. It felt like the most fitting to me because it's originally located on top of a mountain as one of the Titan Pokemon in this game. For his final Pokemon, I really wanted to avoid Ice types because that's the whole point. Since it's supposed to have a flying Terra type, I searched for electric types because it would negate their weakness to ground. I decided on Ampharos because it reminded me of its evolutionary line and the bundles of wool it acquires when Ampharos Mega Evolves. Not that we'd be Mega Evolving in this case because that would be a logistic nightmare. Do you think I made good choices? Would you give gym leaders a different type from what I chose? Let me know in the comments. Maybe we could also work on Elite 4 members too. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and as always, I appreciate you being here. Bye!